Good Afton, and welcome to Inte Afton with me, Jarkus of Redaktör. And today we will be talking about responsibility. Yes, and we will be playing the good old AMC, as you can see, and on the 63 route. Yes, indeed. Today we got some water and coke. These little chocolates, very nice. So what about responsibility as I start to get my bus moving here, eh? Yeah, maybe, turn off all the brakes and all that. There we go. So, what is this responsibility? So responsibility is, for me, something that you ought to take care of, because people expect you to take care of it. And what might that be? Well, let's draw a general example. Work. In a workplace, In a workplace, it's generally expected of you to do well work. Stop right there. Oh, darkness in the bus. Yeah, maybe I should fix that. There they are. Is it all? Whatever, let's get a corn. Route 63, here we go. Get those wires going. Anyhow, responsibility. Something that people expect you to do. Or what might people expect you to do? Well, they might expect you to work, fill a file, print something, anything weird, right? And if you do these things that people want you to do, then people will generally have a good outlook on you. If you, however, don't, you don't do what you're supposed to do, then, people will start questioning what you're even doing at all, exactly. So, what responsibilities do I have in my personal life? Well, there's, an endless list if you really think about it for a longer period of time. Just like cleaning the house, balancing my economy and eating healthy, being happy. I'm responsible for that. And you might say, well, those are just things that you require of yourself, but it's still a responsibility. People might not say it in that particular way, but people expect you to, not be insane, right? And especially if you have good parents, they expect you to be healthy and happy and good. No, just generally alright, feeling good, That guy's not kidding. But is that all I got? Of course not. there are some responsibilities that I just plainly put on myself. That I, you know, they are, you know, the cause, the effects of having certain ambitions, right? So I'm making up a story, making a video game, and for that I need to give myself responsibility. Who else is gonna put that responsibility on me to, you know, actually produce the video game other than myself? And, you know, maybe in the future as well, the customers. And also the show, right? It's completely on myself to take on that responsibility and act upon it. Not something that, you know, societal norms or other people require of me. It's something that I've completely just put on myself. And that I believe that's good things to have, because it sort of reflects your discipline level. And yeah, if we look at all my episodes and what I say at them, there is some, you know, lacking discipline here and there. Nice English guy. No people here. I remember maybe the episode before this one or before that one, I said I was gonna make an episode just 2 weeks later, and I'm pretty sure I forgot. Which means, you know, I failed that responsibility on myself. And so be it, you know, but it does show that I'm, you know, and not like 100% disciplined on myself, right? So, you know, I ought to work on that. I ought to work on that, man. Anyhow. And, you know, these responsibilities, you don't need to make a, you know, an entire YouTube sort of show thing, which is basically just me ranting.
Erste Stunde Fahrschule ist ja nichts dagegen, ne?
What are they complaining for, man? I'm just drunk. Did I miss a station? Is that not the right way? Yeah. So the responsibilities that you can, you know, put on yourself today is activities that other people don't expect of you, but that you want to expect from yourself. And what sort of activities would that be? I guess training could be one of them. People don't expect that from you, or maybe it's learning, maybe it's reading. It all sort of depends what you normally do and what people don't expect from you to do. Generally, right? Of course, now that I have this show, people expect me to do it, right? Or at least the one guy who's watching, but it still doesn't take away from that it's a responsibility that I put on myself. There is no consequence for any YouTuber when they stop. Period. Right? And why do I say that? Well, it's because that if a YouTuber does have consequence to their actions... I didn't open that one. It's because they're making money off the platform. If you're not making money off of YouTube, it doesn't matter if you stop YouTubing generally, right? And that can be said for a lot of things, you know? Like, if you stop going to the gym, well, yeah, it will hurt your performance and strength and activity, but I don't think I've ever seen someone other than like maybe gym partners or gym friends complaining about someone stopping going to the gym, right? People might comment on it, but it's not something that people, endlessly expect from a person to do. Where do I go from here? Probably the yellow line. Duh. So yeah, definitely gymming is probably the biggest example. And if you're already going to the gym, then I'm reading a book, playing a visual novel, or just doing anything that you usually don't do. Like speaking in front of a camera, or playing a bus simulator, or playing a video game or a genre, or listening to music that you've never really listened to before, and make it like a, activity, a hobby, something that you do often. That's putting responsibilities on yourself without reason, yeah. And that shows your discipline level. Of course, there's no reason to put these responsibilities on yourself, if you don't want to. But some responsibilities are, clearly beneficial, like reading books and going to the gym. I'll say the only books I've read are novels and the books we got at school, right? And I gym at home, so I do calisthenics, right? But that guy doesn't know. He doesn't know the rules of the road. And of course, you can't just do something once and say that's a responsibility. It ought to be something that, for benefit, you have to do it a lot of times. Like listening to music. You might say, oh, well, I can just listen to a song once and be done with it. Well, can you really? When I'm listening to a song, I have to listen to it like maybe 100 or 50 to 100 times total. I'd say definitely. I don't know what's going on. I'm not even sure if this is the right way anymore. Doesn't really matter. Wait, I'm going to school. Yeah, this is... There's no way this is the right way. Let me look at this station. If this is the right way, then it should say 63 on it. I have not been driving the 63 for long enough. When we look at a specific example of listening to music or playing a different game genre, you sort of want to take it to the level of becoming, I don't even have my lights, becoming a reviewer, right? That's when you really get into it, you're no longer just sitting there enjoying the content, you're actually thinking about it. Realizing the small details that a musician might employ in one of their songs, or game maker put in their game. Captain Slow over here. Get your ass out of here. Okay. So you have responsibilities, right? And you probably already know what your responsibilities are in your life. What happens when you entwine that with someone else? Because, you know, we do live in a society. And that means that we have to work with people. Yeah? And some people take responsibility in, you know, they don't care for it as much as one might. Which is, you know, unfortunate, but as any Buddhist would say, their life are their own. Well, what do you do? What do you do when that happens? Let's say you have you're working on a project with your workmates, right? Or you are in a band or something. And one of the musicians decides, you know, he's very lazy, he doesn't show up a lot, and just generally makes the whole process of making the song together harder, right? The person might not really be aware of what they're doing, or in some capacity takes a few steps back from the project that other members, you know, just have taken many more steps than that particular person. And what do you do then? What do you do? Well, in my case, I will probably try to, as much as you can, right? Pick up on the person who's lacking. But, you know, not everyone can do that, and, you know, certainly not in this specific example, right? It's very hard to take over for a musician unless maybe you're the guitarist and the guy who's not being so productive is the singer, and maybe you can sing as well as you're playing. But of course, that's not really something that a lot of people will expect, I guess. It all depends, right? So yeah, definitely me personally, I would try to take up more responsibility when I can, right? Just because generally I like having responsibility, I like being looked upon as the responsible guy. But when you do face the situations where there are people that don't take the responsibility seriously, keep getting annoyed over the left screen. There's something popping up, I swear. I might see it in the recording later. My left screen is just my camera, so I'll have a little peek-see-loo of that later. Take a sip. And a bit of water. Very good. When a person doesn't take their responsibility seriously. I think the first thing you'd ought to do is talk about it, right? Sort of, make sure that it's not like some mishap or confusion going on, that the person is aware of their responsibility. And let's say the person is completely aware of their responsibility, and yet is still not taking it seriously, then you might want a conversation about, not having that person at all. Just recently I had I don't know the English word for it, but a presentation, let's call it, from a guy who works at the Swedish military company, Saab, right? They also make cars back in the day. He was working at, well, it doesn't really matter, but military is military, right?
Guten Abend.
Guten Tag.
Hey, ain't no guten Tag, bro. Guten Abend. Yeah, but anyway, he was explaining that he was, prior to working at the military company, he was actually working at an Austrian company. I think it was based in the capital. Nevertheless, when he was working there, he's a very specialized scientist, right? So he was working in a very small group. And the two, let's call them lab mates, for lack of a better word, currently. His two lab mates, they were Austrian, he's Swedish. And one of the lab mates was very old and didn't really take the job seriously. So basically saying he didn't take his responsibility seriously. Bumpy road here. Turn these beamers on. Oh no. I don't even know if anyone's on the bus. There they are. Yeah, so, but he was not taking his job seriously, and maybe he was like 16. And I believe, he kept the job for 6 months, and I think after 3 or so, there came another guy who was Finnish. So there were 4 people now. And eventually the company decided to let go of the 2 other lab mates that the Swedish guy had prior, because clearly they weren't doing nothing. And the Finnish guy and the Swedish guy kept the job until they left themselves, finding better opportunities. That's common in that particular industry, to switch jobs, a lot compared to other industries. Open that door, come on now. But to me, what it really screamed is that the responsibility issues that you might see in maybe like kids, teenagers, young adults, and maybe even some adults, they prevail everywhere, no matter the age. You can be irresponsible at any age. And something that, I've noticed myself, maybe turn off these high beams, is that people who are irresponsible, they also tend to do other bad things, yeah? What do I mean by bad things? Well, to me, bad things are things that aren't very Buddhist-like. So, we are talking lying, we're talking being very loose with one's language, which I might fall in that category at times. But yeah, definitely irresponsible people I've seen lie a lot more than people I've seen just be responsible. And they're lying because they don't want to show that they're irresponsible. I remember back in gymnasium, it's called here in Sweden, basically high school, I believe, in English or American schools, or school tiers/levels. Yeah, I had one group where one person literally did not do their work. Like they did some minor work last minute and they couldn't finish it, obviously. So what they did was they gave in the paper, but they completely left out the last paragraph or so, because they hadn't done it yet. And when the teacher asked about it, when the teacher asked about it, the student said, "Oh, I must have forgotten to put that in." And then in later, communications, that paragraph was never put in. I'm just trying a little fast. Don't you AI people worry about it. And then another example, which is, I don't know what to think of it really, but just an example. Back in gymnasium as well, this is where all the funny stuff happens. We had a psychological project, and for one of those projects, the people I was working with weren't too excited to work with each other, and also the psychological, let's call it paper or psychological document, something along those lines, that we were working on was a very small one. It didn't really require a lot of work. So what we ended up doing was giving me all the work. I did the entire group project all by myself. And to me, that was fine. I loved psychology at the time, even though our teacher at the time was pretty horrible, to be honest. Good guy though. Bad teacher. Yeah, but I did all the work. People want to get on. Okay, they're not getting on this one. Sorry, guys. And turn back now. And the actual grade that you get from doing that paper was not based on what you wrote in the group project. It was based on a seminar that you did later on. And of course, I, who did the entire group project, was very well prepared for the seminar. And I knew that beforehand, which kind of evil when you think about it, right? I mean, I didn't necessarily plan for them to fail. I mean, they didn't fail, of course. They just got lower grades than me. But yeah, I didn't plan for them to get lower grades. I simply, you know, try to get myself better grades and also have fun doing it. Which is, you know, the sort of irresponsible ways that you know, it's things that are, I gotta think about the words right here for a moment. When you're doing things that you might feel are fun or productive or even responsible, you might actually miss some details that are very irresponsible and actually hurts others. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. And there's the bus 63. I guess we're gonna wait on the bus 63. We're gonna let it go, and then we're gonna pick up some passages that it misses. So we're simply gonna come up here and plant our bus stop. So here the key aspect, right, is to be aware of all actions and their consequences, of course. So, you know, in that action, the consequences was that I got easily the easiest A I have ever received, and my group mates got a lower score because of it. I mean, that is also just an assumption. It could just be that they would have gotten that score anyway because they might have not been interested in psychology at all. But nevertheless, the group project would probably have helped at least. So there's a balance of everything. But I definitely perceive that the thing I did was very... I don't think it was good, but I don't think it was bad either. Very mixed on that particular case. Anyhow. Oh, I'm not looking at the road. That's a lot of people that he dropped off. We're gonna do another little pause right here. So what are the effects of having responsibility? Well, for me, they're very cut and dry, right? The responsibility makes me more productive. They make me healthier. They put me to work, which I believe we've talked about in another video. About how having work is, beneficial. While we're on the subject of other videos, let me take a little peek at my YouTube channel real quick. I feel like I've talked about responsibility before, but I didn't title it responsibility. It might be about being dependable. Two subjects that seem to be far apart, but are actually very compatible. Would you look at that? Anyhow. But there are obviously other effects of responsibility. And one of them, I guess we can say that it's one of the effects of responsibility might be that you lose out on a lot of social or just general fun, let's call it, activities, you know, leisure activities, even though one of the leisure activities might be your responsibility, right? But you know, it's also how you balance things, your work responsibilities and your social responsibilities. I mean, you might not think that talking to your friends is a responsibility, but it sort of is. And you know, we do that sort of activities kind of automatically, really. You don't go and think about, oh, I need to talk to my friend because I haven't talked to him, blah 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 blah. You most often than not, you just think, oh well, of course I want to talk to my friend. Or, you know, of course I want to play video games or go outside play football with my friends. And the reason I'm saying it's a responsibility is because when you stop doing that, then it gets a bit, you know, irresponsible, because the people that you used to play with or do any activity with, right? They will be, well, upset, angry, sad. They will feel different without you. And even though you might not think that you're affecting a group dynamic, let me tell you, you're absolutely wrong. One single guy, you don't even need to be particularly active in a group. One person can drastically affect how a group works. You know, I've had this great slew of friends. Slew was a weird word to use, but let's go with it, right? And one of the friend groups that I had, that was an outsider one, so, you know, only English speakers, no Swedes. It was one German and one British person. And we kind of started on Overwatch. Well, not kind of, we literally started on Overwatch. And after time, when we started stepping away from Overwatch, it was also the time of other games becoming popular, like Fortnite, and I think Minecraft was making a comeback at that time as well. Anyway, we started breaking off from Overwatch. It got way too competitive, and you know, they weren't releasing any updates anymore, or at least the production halted a lot. So we started moving away from that. Me and the British person, we at times started playing Warframe, while the British person and the German person, they played a little Fortnite, but I didn't. So you know, there was a lot of variety in there. But the main thing that we all three did together was play visual novels. The first one that me and the German person played was very, I don't know what to call it. It was a very light novel. It was a very funny novel because let's call the novel, you know, fun bad, right? The story elements were just funny, you know. The game was trying to be all serious, but to us it was just fun, to be honest. And that brought us and that brought me and the German very close together, as a sort of first stepping stone outside of Overwatch. We also started Skyping and talking on Steam, etc., right? But the main game that we all three played together afterwards was a game called Doki Doki Literature Club. And you know, we played that all throughout the end, to them. And then the British person actually suggested one of the classics of that friend group, which would become Danganronpa and that entire video game genre or series. We check the time, 40 minutes, alright. But why am I bringing this? Or what does this have to do with responsibility? Well, you see, us three, we never actually even finished the first Danganronpa. And why is that? Well, around, I think 3 years ago now, the British person suddenly just vanished from the group. And we don't really know why. I mean, quite literal definition of ghosting, I believe. Just sort of vanished. Now, at that time, I wasn't really a Buddhist. I think I was journeying towards it, but I acted strange, weird, stuff like that. I hadn't even really fully recovered from depression at that time. Anyway, now I'm good, right? Yeah, we're on the right path. Yeah, so she left, completely gone. We do see her from time to time on Overwatch, but that's about it. We don't really try to make any more contact, at least as far as I'm aware. But that, other than just breaking trust, it sort of broke the group into something that it wasn't, right? Now it wasn't this dynamic of one elder, well, not elder, the oldest person being the British girl in this case, and then me being I'll call myself Kurdish. Kurdish guy who was the middle age between all three of us, and then a German boy, basically, right? And then when she left, it left me and the German guy. And now I became the old guy in the group. And after that, when it was just me and him left, I mean, we were kind of waiting on her because we didn't want to continue Danganronpa without her. Until eventually we just said, let's do it anyway. We can't wait forever, right? And good thing we did, thank God, right? So I bought myself the Danganronpa pack, which had the free Danganronpa games, and I bought my German friend the Danganronpa game called The Spare Girls, because it was funny. But to go back to topic, right? She broke her responsibility by ghosting. But then some might argue, well, is it really one's responsibility to stay active in a group and be part of a group and fulfill that, even if the person doesn't like it? Well, there are different ways to go about it, right? I think ghosting would probably be one of the worst solutions. You could just say, and I know it's difficult to do, mind you, but you could quite easily just say what your feelings are towards a certain group. How is this guy parking right now? But yeah, you can explain your feelings towards a group and leave peacefully, right? Because when she just left randomly, it left the rest of the group to, sit and wait for a return, but she never did. So we simply waited like maybe half a year, I believe. Maybe even a bit longer when you think about exactly when she left. And bought the games. But it left the group in, you know, not disarray, but it certainly became something else. So yeah, there are, you know, there can have, what's the word? You can expect there to be massive differences in responsibility when you don't take them, or when you take too much. As I've showed, and as the person who ghosted showed. Our group dynamic became very different, but mind you, that me and that German guy, we are the boys. We call ourselves the Johnson Brothers, you know? Yeah. Let me just go past this guy. He can't stop me, man. They'll turn around like this. This bus doesn't have a difference between battery and engine. I mean, it's good. I guess it's electric bus or whatever. Well, responsibility, eh? When you take it and do it right, feels very good. And when you take it and don't do it at all, I don't know if it feels bad, but it definitely doesn't feel that good now, can it? One thing to note about people who aren't responsible is to be patient with them. But always, you know, honestly explain to the entire group, or just maybe to them, what you're feeling. Because talking it out, explaining things, is just way better than doing nothing, right? But I believe that is gonna be it for me. Let's see, you know what? Just to prove my sincerity in this disciplinary act of making these episodes, I promise you, next episode is on the 3rd of December. I'm gonna put it in the fucking my document, so I know when it is. So that's gonna be the 12th. What date wasn't it? 3rd. 1203 of 2023. And I'm gonna say IAE. IEA, I mean. There we go. Oopsies. It does have power. Lying. Gosh, man. What are we gonna be talking about on that day? I don't know. Anyhow, I will see you next on the 3rd of December. And I wish you good night. And thank you for watching. Bye.